Hello everyone, it's Mari Clarke here with another episode of Tried, Trendy, and True. And today I'm going to be using the gorgeous Gingham Garden collection from Crepe Paper and American Crafts. I'm just going to do a really quick flip through of the 8x6 paper pad. You could see that there's gold foiling on some of these papers. The color palette is absolutely delicious. The patterns are so gorgeous. I absolutely love everything about this collection. It is absolutely my style. And when I saw this collection, I had to have it. So I wanted to work with it today for a 12 by 12 layout here for you. And I've got some of the other pieces for the collection as well here. I am not going to use everything. When I started off here, I wasn't exactly sure of how I wanted to design my project, but I love these pieces here. They're so adorable. So many different elements that you can get as part of this collection. Now I'm starting off here with a piece of Vicki Boutin Foundations paper in white, and I'm going to treat the paper with a little bit of clear gesso. This is some Prima clear gesso, and I'm just adding that on to my paper with a silicone spatula here. I'm just going to grab the excess off the paper and just get that nice thin coat of gesso on there. I will go ahead and dry that with my Ranger heat tool and just make sure that it is nice and dry before I start applying some color to this paper. I will go ahead and dry the front and the back. Super important to dry the back of your paper as well. And during the process, eventually this paper will flatten out completely, and I'll give you some tips about how to flatten out your paper when you're using mixed media. Now I wanted to use watercolor. The watercolor that I'm using today is a Lindy's Stamp Gang Magicals called Cotton Candy. You could literally use any watercolor water-based product that you have in your space. So you could use your Distress inks, you could use your Gina K inks, you could use any type of ink that's water-based. You could also use really any type of watercolor or any type of powdered watercolor like this product that I'm using here today. What I like about this one is that it does have shimmer to it. So I'm starting off here by putting some water on my paper. I add the dry powder into the spaces that have water, and then I'm just using my brush to move that pigment around. I'm also moving the paper to allow the pigment to flow on the paper as well. Now what's really cool about using this technique, whether you're using Magicals or whatever product you're using, maybe perhaps you're using your Vicki Boutin art crayons, wherever the water pools, wherever the pigment pools, it's going to be darker. And so you're going to just get this really cool effect of lights and darks, and it just looks really fun when it's all dried. So I am going to use my heat tool again to help with the drying process. And so far I've kind of got a weird egg shape. I am going to extend the sides out so that I get more of a circular shape going on. And once I have that circle complete, I'll go in with my different paint brushes and I'll splatter with that same cotton candy pigment just to add a little splatters around the edge of where the color finishes. And that's just going to kind of help that edge blend in to the white paper that's on the other side of the pigment so that it just creates this nice soft look rather than a hard edge. So I'll just take my time to go ahead and continue to add those splatters with a fine brush and a bigger brush, and using my heat tool to dry during the process. And I'm just going to get some really nice big splatters by getting a bunch of the liquid in my larger brush and just squeezing it out, and I'll get some really fun drips and drops on the project in that way, and these are going to dry in a really fun splatter look. Some of this is going to get covered up, and I'm totally fine with that. And just knowing that this beautiful pink color is going to be popping out around the different elements of my project, it's going to look really pretty when it's finished. So I'm going to again take my heat tool and dry the front and the back of the paper, and I'll just kind of like roll the paper so that it stays a little bit more straight as I go. I'll flatten it out really well with my hands, and I'll show you, like I said, a few other tips as I go here to flatten out the paper. So now I'm going to take the base for my project and size it down. So I'm going to take 1/4 of an inch off of each edge of the paper. So I'm going to take the paper down in effect to 11 inches. And so in that way, each of the different sides will get 1/4 of an inch taken off of them to equal 1 inch total. And so we will have an 11-inch piece, and there will be a really nice border on each edge of the paper. So I'll just go ahead and use my Fiskars trimmer here to take off that little bit of extra, using the lines over on the right just to help me line this up, and then just really working to make sure that I get this straight. And in that way, the margin around the edge of my paper will be straight as well. So when you're doing this, it is important to take the time to make sure whatever trimmer you're using, that you get a really good straight precision cut. I'm also going to use this Crafter's Companion stencil today. This one is called Raindrop Swirls. This is a 3-piece stencil set, and the largest stencil in the set is 8 by 8. And I'm going to use some Altenew embossing paste here to create a little more texture on my background. So I'm just going to scrape a little bit of this off the bottom. I'm almost out of this embossing paste. I love this product. It is so good. And I'm just using a palette knife with a really nice flat edge on it to go ahead and scrape that through to create that texture. This is really going to help soften up that pink. The pink isn't super bright, but I wanted to just dull it back a little bit. And so this is how you can achieve that. Because the watercolor pink is water-based, and this product that I'm using here is white, it's actually going to absorb some of that water-based color, which is fine, but it's still going to dry in a way that's going to tone down that pink a little bit and soften it up even more. To also add a little bit more softness to the background, I'm going to add some Dina Wakley gloss spray in white, and I'm just going to splatter that. I'm going to get some really nice big and small splatters, a variety of sizes of droplets here, and that's going to dry nice and textured, and it's going to give me just a really nice white look again on my background. So I'm just really trying to soften this up. I have to say that my favorite style of using color in my projects is to do a really nice soft look. It's one of my sort of go-to kind of looks that I really like, whether it's scrapbooking or card making, whatever it is that I'm working on. So now you can see that is all finished and how really pretty and shiny those magicals are, how soft and lovely this is. I really love this background. Now I wanted to use this wood grain paper as the mat or the frame around my project. So I'm just taking my repositionable tape runner here and adding that to the wood grain paper. Now I'll go ahead and take my project here and add that onto the frame. I'm just making sure that it is nice and straight, so I'm taking my time to get this on there in the right spot. Now what I'll do next is take that to my sewing machine and I'll sew all the way around the perimeter, and that is going to really help flatten this out. So I didn't use a lot of adhesive on the wood grain paper. Just a little bit, just to tack it down, but the sewing will really grab these edges and really help flatten this out. The other thing that I did to help flatten this out is I attached an extra piece of the Vicki Boutin Foundations paper to the back of the wood grain paper, and I used a really strong adhesive to do that, and so that really super flattens this out and gives it just a really great flat appearance. Now this is probably my favorite pattern paper from the Gingham Garden collection. This paper is just absolutely scrumptious. We have just this beautiful pastel palette of sort of like a paint swipe or paint stripe. I love it so much. I love that it brings all of the colors from the collection into these stripes, and just I love how it just really helps that pink background pop a little bit as well. So I've just created this sort of I don't know what shape you would call this, sort of like a C shape or a U shape with my paper when I tore it. And I tore it so that the white edge, the white core of the paper is showing. I'll just take that edge and fold it up and distress it a little bit. And I really love how that looks as a nice horizontal piece through the center of the project. Now I'm going to take some craft foam and attach that to the back of my 4x3 photos. I was showing you there, I did add some sewing along that torn edge of that straight paper as well. And Now I'm just going to take the adhesive backer off the back of the paper here, the release paper, and go ahead and adhere this craft foam onto my photos. And then I will attach those onto a white mat. So I just cut a white piece of cardstock slightly larger than my photos. And that's what I'm going to mat the photos on. It just looks really nice and clean, that white mat, especially on that really pretty pink background. So really like how that looks, and I'm just going to add a little bit of adhesive to the white cardstock. This is the Crafter's Companion. It's not the dotted tape runner, it's the solid tape runner, and it's really, really strong adhesive. I love it. And I actually used that to attach that extra sheet of Vicki Boutin Foundations paper behind the wood grain paper to help flatten my project out. So it's a really great adhesive, and I'm using that, like I said, to attach my photos to the photo mat cut slightly larger than 4x3. Okay, so I have my photos all matted and loving how this is looking so far. By the way, how adorable are those photos of my daughter and my little grandson? This was a Mother's Day photo shoot this spring, which was when the trees were just in bloom, and it was so pretty and we had so much fun. So I am going to also be matting my photos in this little die cut piece, and I use the Pink Fresh Studio floral lace die to die cut these out of white. Whenever you can incorporate your dies into your scrapbooking, do it, because dies are not inexpensive. They are usually fairly pricey, or they can be anyways. And so I find that I want to use those tools as much as possible on my projects. And so I love this die from Pink Fresh. It is gorgeous, and I've used it a lot in my different processes, scrapbooking and card making, and it's gorgeous. So I've cut that from white cardstock. I'm just adhering it to the back of the photo mats, and you can just see how that pokes out and just creates that really pretty little soft lacy detail. Another way just to create some really pretty soft looks is to use some kind of delicate dies. Now the other dies I'm using, or I used here, is the Honeybee Stamps Lovely Layers Heart Vine dies, and these just create this really gorgeous little leafery sort of a piece that I'm going to use on the corners of my photos. I am just sort of getting that straight paper all placed down with my tape runner, and I'm going to start to adhere these photos down as well, using my Honeybee Precision Glue to help me do the liquid adhesion here today. I'm going to just go ahead and grab my Crafter's Companion ruler to find the 6-inch point, or the center of the layout, and I am going to just make sure that that 6-inch point is between the two photos. I want these photos to be centered. I thought initially I might design the layout so that they were over more to the left, but as I was looking at it and the different elements that I wanted to use and how I wanted to put the clusters of embellishments, I decided the best placement for these two photos would be in the center. So now I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that I have things all lined up properly, that things are centered before things are really stuck, and just making sure that the side measurement is roughly centered-ish, and it looks pretty good to me, so I'm just going to leave things where they are. I've put some glass blocks on the photos just to really let that glue adhere to the paper, and I am just eyeballing it now to make sure things look like they are in the right place. And I like to do that because when I'm working on camera, oftentimes it's hard to see when I'm looking down at the project, so that I don't have my head in the way of the camera. So now I am going to go on to start embellishing, and I'm using lots of the little die cut pieces from the different ephemera from the Gingham Garden collection. So I'm using some of the different stickers and die cuts from the different elements from the collection here. This is one of the cardstock ephemera pieces, and I have doubled up the foam on that floral piece. I've put that little Honeybee die cut behind it, and I'll put the other die cut from Honeybee in the opposite corner. So I'm going with a diagonal cluster situation here. So I'm going to just be working on those two corners, the top left and the bottom right of the two photos. and just ensuring that I've got some interest in each of those different corners, drawing your eye across the photos, and so that the photos, of course, are the focal point of the project. This little butterfly was actually fussy cut from one of the little cards that was in the 8x6 paper pad, and it does have gold foiling on it, so I love that, and I just wanted to include this as an embellishment. I'm just doubling up the foam so that it has lots of dimension on there, and just going to pop that on top of that papery piece that I have underneath it. Love those paper repacks that American Crafts is now including in lots of their different collections. They're really fun. There's so many pieces in those packs, and you can really use those in so many different ways. So I really love those. And you can see that I'm adding some other little bits underneath that right side cluster there. I've got a little die cut piece there that says every day. And I'm adding some foam stickers now as well from the foam sticker sheets. There's that really pretty pink little heart that's in the center of that floral up to the left. And I'm just going to take a couple of these other little hearts and add them like confetti onto the project. The word love, which is the title, was from the foam sticker sheets as well. And it's got really beautiful gold foiling on it, which is really super lovely. The Gingham Garden collection does have some elements that have the gold foiling on them, which is really nice. So this is that little piece I'm adding now that says every day. So the little papery piece above it says sweetest, and then the little die cut piece there says every day. And just taking another look just to make sure everything is looking straight. And I think I'm going to add another little bit of foam up to this area here just to give this a bit more dimension. And then I'm going to add a little sticker behind that piece as well as we go here. So this is the sticker pack or the little sticker book. Love this little book. It's got tons of stickers in it. There's alphas and all sorts of the phrase stickers and lots of little bits in there. And so I wanted to just take this greenery piece and add that in behind this die cut, and that is actually going to match the leaves that are part of that die cut up there as well. And I'm just going to take this foam piece that says love on it. I'm going to add some glue onto the back, and I will adhere that just at the bottom under the photos there, trying to center the in between the O and the V in this in between, in that sort of gutter between the photos. And I'll just give that a really good press. And I do have 2 journaling strips here that I've included as part of my journaling here. I just typed those on my manual typewriter and cut them with my trimmer, and just going to add a little bit of repositionable adhesive on there and stick that down. When I have the first one on there, I'm just going to use my T-square ruler to make sure that one is straight. That way I'll know that the next one is straight if I have it lined up with that one. I'm just going to add a little bit of my tape runner onto the back of that journaling strip as well, and that will basically finish up. I've just got one more step I think that I need to do. Just making sure again with my ruler that that strip is straight. And now I'm going to adhere this second strip of journaling down. So just get that in place with my tweezers and give that a press. And lastly, I'm going to add some more white splatter to my project. This again is the Dina Wakley Gloss Spray in white. Love how this dries with dimension. It dries super fast. It's really easy to work with. It is definitely my favorite white splatter at the moment. I really love it. So I'm going to just give this a really generous splatter in white, and that is going to finish up my project. I'll just have to take off those bits of white cardstock that I have covering up my photos and any text that's on my project that I don't want white splatter on, and the layout will be all finished. So here you can just see the reveal when everything is done. I'll give you a look close up, and that finishes off my project today. Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Tried, Trendy, and True today, friends. Always a pleasure to be here on the SCT YouTube channel. Have an amazing day, friends. See you again. Bye-bye. Take care.